Even though we've seen literally over 1,000 Pokemon at this point, there are still many varieties of Pokemon that we have never seen before. So in this video, we're going to explore just that and what they could look like. One good example of a kind of Pokemon that we haven't seen yet to this point is a Convergent starter Pokemon, and an example of what that could look like is Dudkip, the abandoned Pokemon. You see, instead of being an axolotl like Mudkip, Dudkip is meant to be like a toy robot, similar to those robot dog toys from the early 2000s. In universe, Dudkip is an artificial Pokemon that was in the process of being created by a group of scientists, but something happened during the project that caused it to not meet their expectations, and therefore the project was abandoned and Dudkip was labeled as a dud. Because of its artificial nature and origins, Dudkip is an electric steel type, and it also has a signature move that references its origins known as Aftershock. This is an electric type move that actually has 0 base power when you first send Dudkip into battle, which references how the scientists thought it was a dud. However, the thing about this move is that it actually gains 20 base power for every turn that Dudkip is in battle, up to a maximum of 140 base power. This would be in reference to how Dudkip would end up proving itself as useful later on, even though it was abandoned, and this would especially be the case with its evolutions, which we will have to cover in a future video sometime if that's something you guys want to see. Like other Convergent Pokemon, Dudkip has the same base stat total as its counterpart Mudkip, that being 310, and in its shiny form, it gains this electric blue color, which I guess you could say is also sort of a nod to the blue of Mudkip as well. Another kind of Pokemon that we have not seen yet to this point is a regional variant of a fossil Pokemon. Now, on the surface, you might wonder how something like this could even work, but there is a way that it could actually work really well, and that is what resulted in this regional variant Kabutops. Unlike Cantonian Kabutops, who is rock water type, this variant Kabutops is a steel water type, which is inspired by the samurai elements that are in both Kabuto and Kabutops' designs. In the modern day, this Kabutops variant is officially classified as a variant because it was revived in another region outside of Kanto, where the original Kabutops was obviously revived. But in actuality, this is actually Kabutops' true form. The scientists in this other region who revived this Kabutops were able to achieve this form of Kabutops because they were able to revive the Pokemon more accurately than had been done in the past, allowing the Pokemon to come back to life just as it had been when it first roamed the Earth. It's often implied that the fossil restoration process somehow affects how fossil Pokemon appear in the modern day, and that a bit of their true form gets lost in the process. So this Kabutops would represent a breakthrough in that regard, as it would be the first fossil Pokemon to be perfectly revived just as it was in the past. Its base stat total does, however, remain the same at 495, but its stats do get shifted a little bit to account for its new steel typing, as 15 is taken off of its attack and it's given to its special defense. Additionally, this Kabutops also gains a new ability called Lightweight Armor. Since 2 of the regular Kabutops' abilities revolve around raising its speed, this ability does the same, and raises regional Kabutops' speed whenever one of its defense stats is also raised. It can also be revived in a shiny form too, where it has this bone-like color, which I thought looked really cool. Getting into our next Pokemon though, another kind of Pokemon that we have not yet seen is a Mega Evolution of a Paradox Pokemon. Since Paradox Pokemon are so new, this admittedly hasn't had a lot of time to happen and still could in the future, but for now it is uncharted territory. So we are going to take a look at what it could look like with Mega Iron Treads. Upon Mega Evolving, Iron Treads drops the Ground type for the Flying type to become a Flying Steel type Pokemon. This is inspired by the wheel theme of Donphan and therefore also Iron Treads, as the next evolution past land travel with wheels is of course travel in the air. Additionally, the flying element here is also inspired by Dumbo, who has the ability to fly and is an elephant just like Iron Treads. Due to the required bond between trainer and Pokemon for Mega Evolution to occur, these Pokemon are used in the distant future in conjunction with law enforcement and the military. They patrol around various areas by hovering in the air, and if they spot a lawbreaker, they can use their tusks as projectiles and shoot down the criminals. Additionally, while Mega Iron Treads tends to stay in the air most of the time, they are also still able to use their wheels if they need to make a ground pursuit, and they also still have retractable feet if they ever need to stand. Thanks to the stat boost of Mega Evolution, Mega Iron Treads boasts a 670 base stat total, with 30 points going to its special attack and special defense, and 20 going to its attack and speed. Upon Mega Evolving, its shiny also diverts from its normal shiny, and it gains this really cool sci-fi green color. This is because while all of the future Paradoxes have chrome shinies, Iron Treads already has some of this same chrome color in its base design, meaning that the shiny just adds even more and it kinda washes out the other colors, which doesn't really look that good in my opinion. So I opted to give it a special green shiny for its Mega instead that addresses those issues and also just gives it a cool sci-fi feel. This next kind of Pokemon is probably the kind that has been talked about the most amongst all of the different ones featured in this video, and that is Fusion Pokemon. The thing is though, Fusion Pokemon do actually exist, and we have a few of them already. But the thing is, the only Pokemon that have been capable of fusing to this point have been legendary Pokemon. So what we haven't seen are normal, everyday Pokemon gaining the ability to fuse as well. Now, like I said, this has long been talked about, so you've probably seen some fusion Pokemon before. But here is my take on the concept, as well as what a fusion Pokemon like this could look like. Meet Galamance, a fusion of Gallade and Salamence. The way that I imagine these fusion Pokemon working is that there would be a set roster of Pokemon that could fuse with each other, as well as a set roster of resulting fusion Pokemon. Upon fusing two Pokemon together, the resulting Pokemon would adopt a typing from each of the Pokemon used to create it, so in this case, Galamance would be Psychic Dragon. Fusion would only be able to be used once per battle, and both Pokemon would have to be in your party in order to fuse them. Additionally, fusing your Pokemon would be a gamble, because once you fused them, they wouldn't be able to be unfused until the battle was over, essentially meaning that you would be giving up one of your available Pokemon in order to use this mechanic. It would obviously have its positives though, because in addition to a boost in stats, probably similar to what Mega Evolutions get, fusion Pokemon would also gain crazy new abilities to make them all the more powerful. For example, Galamance would have a new ability called Amalgamation, which would make any moves of its own types, so Psychic and Dragon, be guaranteed critical hits. For a shiny, Galamance would also just use Salamance's shiny colors since it adopts the coloration of Salamence already. And while there are definitely a lot of other facets to this idea that would need to be figured out in order to make it work, I don't think it's impossible by any means. So you will have to let me know all of your thoughts about this in the comments below, and while you're doing so, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos. I'll be back soon with another one, and until then, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.